What's up, guys? Today we got a full speed test and camera comparison with the iPhone 10, the iPhone SE, and the iPhone 10R. So what's interesting about these three phones is that they're all the same price. So if you're in the used refurbished marketplace like I am, constantly looking at phones, I notice these are all in that same $300 price point. So which one should you get? Let's go ahead and test these phones out. Alright, so let's go ahead and start with a boot up here. We're on iOS 15 on all of these devices, and I'll go over these specs right after this. So let's go ahead and get that boot up going here. 3, 2, 1. Okay. See what we get here. I'm assuming the SE should boot up first, then the 10R, then the 10. And the 10R booted up first, the SE second, and 10 last. That's pretty interesting. And also, before we get started with the speed test, again, just to check the price, $323 is the lowest. I see it, $319 actually for T-Mobile. And the iPhone SE 2020 actually got a pretty nice, cut here, $250 with total wireless. But again, just for a unlocked version, it'll be like $300. And then with the iPhone 10R, you can see the cheapest version unlocked would be $325. So all in the same price range, which is really awesome. Now, even though we're at similar price points, we are getting very different chips that can do. You will see a significant difference in certain things. So with the iPhone 10, this is running the iOS 15, the Apple A11 chip with 3 gigs of RAM. And the iPhone 10R is running the A12 chip with 3 gigs of RAM, which you wouldn't think is a big difference, but for gamers, you're going to see that difference. And then the SE, actually the most powerful out of the bunch here, running the Apple A13 chip with 3 gigs of RAM as well. So you can see it pretty much kills both in the benchmarks in the single core and multi-core score. And then you can see the same thing with the Antutu benchmark scores here. You can see first, second, third here. So let's go ahead and launch some applications and see, can we notice a difference? Then we'll launch PUBG so I can show you guys what's the difference, the real difference between these two phones if you're a gamer. Alright, let's go ahead and launch some applications. We're going to be using Siri. Open Subway Surf. So we can see the SE jumped out pretty quickly actually. And then it looked like the 10 actually kind of beat the 10R. They were almost kind of tied. What you will notice about the displays is that the 10 has an OLED display. The 10R and the SE have an IPS panel. So the display on the 10 looks much better than both of these panels here. This is just something to note there. Open YouTube. SE, and then the 10 and 10R kind of tied there. Open Instagram. 10 SE again, and then the 10R and 10 are kind of looking tied. So as we can see, the 10R and 10, they are kind of tied in terms of performance, but we can see the SE almost always kind of jumps out ahead because of that stronger processor. But we're going to see a big difference when we launch a game like PUBG. Let's try one more. Open Amazon. SE. And again, the same results here. So let's go ahead and just, maybe I can do this with 3 fingers. No, I can't. Maybe. You can see almost on par with each other. But now let's check out the PUBG graphics and let's check that out. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at the graphics here. And we'll start with the, dang man, move out the way. Graphics. Alright, so we can see the 10R, it's able to do extreme all the way through and then go up to Ultra HD. And then the same thing on the SE, extreme up to Ultra HD. But now when we get to the 10, we have Extreme, but it goes down to Ultra, and we have no option for Ultra HD. So if you're a gamer and you really want to play, you at least want to play, I guess, at HDR, Extreme. If you want the best, looking settings, then you would go for the 10R there, because overall it's just going to be a better performer. But if you are trying to get the most power out of your phone, the SE is just going to play much better. It's going to play much smoother. To me, with less, hiccups and stuff like that. But the drawback with the SE is that the screen is kind of small. So, I'm not really sure how, people feel about gaming on smaller phones and stuff like that. Which I don't have an issue with it. But again, the screen is kind of small for today's standards. A lot of people like, these big, massive phones these days. But all of these play at a really great FPS. It's not like the 10 is laggy or anything like that. It's relatively smooth. I usually don't have an issue with it. It plays smooth, at extreme frames. So, if you're not really tripping about that, because the 10 does have the OLED display. It's got a better display. To me, it's got a better design as well. And the SE, like I said, is going to give you the most power. It's going to be extremely smooth. You're rarely going to notice frame drops with this phone. But the thing is, battery life is not as good as these two as well, so that's also something to consider. And then the 10R, this does a very good job here. Very smooth. I don't have any issues with this phone as far as gaming. It does a pretty good job. Look at the photos. I do like to check out the speakers, so let's go ahead and check those out here. They're on max volume, starting with the 10. So I would say the iPhone 10, then the 10R, then the SE. My 10R is kind of like distorting at this max volume. Yeah, so my sounds definitely a little bit clearer on the 10 here. The SE, I didn't expect it to beat it on any of these phones because it is a smaller phone, so has a smaller speaker setup. But it actually sounds really good for a smaller phone. You actually get good bass quality. But like I said, I would go 10, 10R, and then the SE. Alright, so let's go ahead and compare the cameras. I'll show you guys some stills so you can see. So with the SE, starting off with this phone, you do have on here a 12 megapixel standard 4K video, 2430 60 FPS, a 7 megapixel selfie that shoots in 1080p. So the setups on these phones are kind of awkward in 2021 because none of these phones have an ultra wide or anything like that. And the 10R, it's the same thing. It has a 12 megapixel standard 4K 2430 60 FPS. On here, 7 megapixel selfie that shoots in 1080p. So this one shoots in 1080p on the front, and the SE can shoot, and it can shoot in 4K. So that's also something that is interesting there. Now the 10 does have a dual camera setup. It's not an ultra wide, but I mean it's a telephoto lens, so it's a 12 megapixel standard 12 megapixel telephoto, also 4K 2430 60 FPS, 7 megapixel selfie, and this one cannot shoot in 4K on the front. So the SE is the only phone that's capable of shooting in 4K as far as the selfie cam goes. So I'll go ahead and show you guys some stills so you guys can see that and check that out. Alright guys, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to let me know which phone would you guys get, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.